Well, Week 5 is now in the books. This NFL season is just flying by. Houston Texans picking up a road win last night over the New York Jets. Jets hung tough in that game, though, kept it closer than a lot of people thought they would. Actually had a chance to win at the end, down 6 with the ball. They were not able to score. Mark Sanchez throwing his second interception of the day. Both interceptions were off of tip passes. In fairness to Sanchez, once again last night he completed less than half of his passes, threw 2 interceptions compared to only 1 touchdown. But I thought he played all right. I thought he played a little bit better than the numbers would indicate. Of course, coming into last night, so much talk about, is it Tebow time? Would we see Tim Tebow? Would last night be the end of the Mark Sanchez era? We only saw Tim Tebow for 7 offensive plays last night. New York crowd was not happy with that at times, booing when Tebow was leaving the field. And I feel that even though, like I said, his numbers weren't very good, I feel like Sanchez did enough last night, played well enough to start this coming weekend against the Indianapolis Colts. But I'll tell you what, if Mark Sanchez continues to complete less than half his passes, if he continues to throw more interceptions and touchdowns, we're going to see Tim Tebow take over as the quarterback of that team very soon. Because the only knock on Tebow is his completion percentage. I mean, that's what his critics will point. Well, this guy's not accurate enough. Completed, 48, 49% of his passes last year. That's right at where Mark Sanchez is right now. And Mark Sanchez does not possess the other things in terms of escapability, mobility, some people would say leadership, that Tim Tebow certainly possesses. So if Sanchez is not able to start throwing the ball better, if he's not able to start getting it closer to 60% completions instead of less than 50%, I expect Tim Tebow to take over this team very soon. And one has to wonder, should Rex Ryan have put Tim Tebow in the final drive of the game? Remember, Jets got the ball last night with 3.5, 4 minutes left, down 6. What was Tebow known for last year in Denver? This guy was known for his fourth quarter comebacks. Many times in situations just like that, Tebow took his team down the field. Sanchez has not necessarily been known for that throughout his NFL career. And even though he did play all right last night, as I said, I think Mark Sanchez played better than the numbers would indicate. Still, he was unable to deliver in that situation. Tim Tebow not only delivered several times that situation last year, he delivered against the Jets in a situation just like that. Don't think that's lost on the New York fans. So we'll continue to monitor this situation. The Jets now falling to 2-3. Still only a game out of the lead in the AFC East. So their season is not done yet by any means. They did respond with a little bit of pride last night. Played well against a Houston Texans team that has just been dominating everybody really throughout this year. They did not dominate the Jets last night. So still, Texans 5-0, Jets 2-3. Jets have the Colts this upcoming week. Texans play at home against the Green Bay Packers on Sunday night. Really looking forward to that game. The line has not been released on BETDAQ yet for that game. We'll talk about that game much more as the week goes along. Of course, all these games we'll talk about much more as the week goes along. We do preview all those games here on BETDAQ NFL. Do want to talk about a few of them right now, though. Lines just released last night. A few of these lines caught my eye. A couple of these games I want to mention, starting with the Thursday night game. Pittsburgh Steelers going on the road to play the Tennessee Titans. Now, I'm unhappy with both these teams right now because I had a losing Sunday going 1-2 on my bets, and my 2 losing bets I bet on the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Tennessee Titans. Pittsburgh failing to cover that 3.5 against Philadelphia Eagles, won by 2. Their offense just squandered repeated opportunities, and then their defense was not able to stand up when it mattered most. They allowed Philadelphia to drive right down the field in the fourth quarter for a touchdown that put them up 1. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger had to drive the Steelers down the field to kick that game-winning field goal. So disappointed with the Steelers last week. The Tennessee Titans, who I liked on the road as underdogs against Minnesota Vikings. Vikings were 6-point favorites in that game, and the Vikings just dominated that game. I couldn't have been more wrong with what I thought was going to happen in that game. I thought it was a good time to maybe sell high on the Vikings. Thought that people's opinion of the Vikings and maybe gotten to the tipping point. They were 3-1, but the Vikings are just better than I'd given them credit for. This is a good team. They've got a good front 7 on defense, a great running back in Adrian Peterson, an improved quarterback in Christian Ponder. And I'm telling you what, each week, I've seen the Vikings play 3 times now this year, and each week my opinion of Percy Harvin gets higher and higher. At the beginning of the season, I was saying, this guy's one of the best playmakers in the league. Last week I said, I think this guy's now one of the best 5 or 6 wide receivers in the NFL. And now, I'm telling you, after seeing Percy Harvin once again, is this guy the best offensive player in football? Bar none. Throw whoever you want out there. Quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers. I'm not sure there is a better offensive player in football right now than Percy Harvin. And the Vikings coaching staff seems to know that because they're starting to get this guy the ball in all kinds of ways, and they need to. I mean, Adrian Peterson, who would have thought that Adrian Peterson would look as healthy as he now does and seems to no longer be the best player on that offense? It's incredible, and just goes to show you the Minnesota Vikings, they might be for real this year with weapons like Harvin, like Adrian Peterson, with Christian Ponder not turning it over as much. I know he threw his first couple of interceptions in the year in this last game, but still, game was well in hand by that time. Anyway, weren't talking about the Vikings. We were talking about the Tennessee Titans, who are hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers this Thursday night. Pittsburgh, a 5.5-point road favorite. Really, it's tough for me to have a whole lot of confidence at all in the Titans right now. You take out that win over the Detroit Lions, which the Detroit Lions have looked awful this year, so who knows how good of a win that was in hindsight. But you take out that win, and Titans are as bad as any team in the NFL. I was a little surprised to see Pittsburgh only favored by 5.5 now. Was thinking this line would be closer to 7 or 7.5. I realized the Steelers' offense off to a little bit of a slow start this year. Steelers in general off to a slow start. Again, they kicked that last-second field goal to improve to 2-2 on the year. They were just an eyelash away from 1-3, so are the Steelers maybe not quite as good as they have been the last couple of years, or are we just overreacting to a little bit of a slow start? I think this Thursday night will tell us a lot, because this is not a game they're going to overlook. This is a primetime game on the road, as we said. Now, Troy Polamalu re-injured himself. I think he injured his calf in the game against the Eagles on Sunday, so Polamalu not expected to play in this game. Polamalu now later in his career starting to become really injury prone. Seems like he's in there about half the time now for the Pittsburgh Steelers, so they will be missing him. Matt Hasselbeck once again starting at quarterback for the Titans. I've been saying all year I thought the Titans were starting the wrong guy at quarterback, going with Jake Locker instead of Hasselbeck. However, Hasselbeck did not look great this past week, so I don't have the type of confidence in him this week that I did going into this last week's game. We'll get more into this game over the next couple of days, but Pittsburgh, at first glance to me, Pittsburgh should win this game comfortably, should win this game by more than 5.5. I know that the Tennessee Titans are at home. I know there'll be some pride on the line here, because Tennessee has just been embarrassed in several of their games this year, including last week against the Minnesota Vikings, and this could be their last chance to really turn around their season. Remember the Titans, a surprise last year at 9-7. A lot of people had high hopes for them this year. A lot of people thought they would challenge Houston for first place in the AFC South. Now, it appears, though, they're going to challenge Jacksonville for last place in the AFC South. We'll see if they can turn things around and put together one more inspired performance, or maybe not one more, maybe their first inspired performance of the season, to maybe get this season turned around and going in the right direction. Another game on Sunday, that was a Thursday night game. Game on Sunday that I want to mention, game that caught my eye, the Dallas Cowboys traveling to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. Ravens currently installed as a 3.5-point favorite in this game on BETDAQ. This is another game that the line struck me as a little bit low. I thought maybe Baltimore -4.5, -5 in this spot. Ravens have been an excellent team this year. I know they struggled a little bit on the road last week against Kansas City, gutting out a 9-6 win against the Chiefs. But, the Chiefs were in a situation, their second straight home game. They'd just given up a lot of points to the San Diego Chargers. I was not surprised to see the Kansas City defense stand up and play well. And I don't think that we should be concerned about the Ravens after that game. I think, if anything, the Ravens showed that they can sort of survive a game, gut out a game when they don't have their best. 9-6 again, they pulled out that win. Ravens now 4-1, first place in the AFC North. And like I just said about Pittsburgh a couple of minutes ago, Pittsburgh maybe not quite the team that they've been over the last couple of years. At least that seems to be what we're seeing, I think, over these last 2 or 3 weeks. So Baltimore, if they can win this game, if they can put together 2 or 3 more wins in a row, they have a chance to really grab that AFC North by the throat, even though we're still early in the year. The Dallas Cowboys, who come to town, Dallas, an extremely inconsistent team. I've said they remind me of Philadelphia and the Chicago Bears, teams who could beat anybody but could lose to anybody. After week 1, we saw Dallas beat the New York Giants. A lot of us had really high hopes for this Cowboys team, thought finally this might be the year where they didn't underachieve. This team seems like an underachieving team to me over the last couple of years. Maybe I'm just giving their talent too much credit, but still, Dallas, after that first game against the Giants, they turned right back into that strange underachieving team. Were blown out on the road in Seattle. This team now sits at 2-2 after a bye last week. They're in danger of following that same path to mediocrity that they've been walking down these last couple of seasons. And I do expect the Ravens to win this game at home. Again, it's way too early in the week for me to be making any calls on these games, but Baltimore -3.5, that feels kind of low. I know Dallas is coming off a bye week, but going on the road, they haven't been great on the road this season, facing a really, really good team, maybe the best team they've played all year. Boy, I don't know. It's going to take a big changing of my mind for me to have confidence in Dallas plus only 3.5 on the road in Baltimore. Another game, another team I said reminds me of the Dallas Cowboys, the Philadelphia Eagles. Another inconsistent team, a team with the talent to beat anybody, but a team who has shown that they're capable of losing to anybody. They host the Detroit Lions this coming Sunday. And both of these two games we've talked about, I've said this line's a little lower than I would expect. And right here, it's the same thing. Philadelphia, if you'd have said to me, and I always try to do this, by the way, if you like betting on football, try this. It's a good exercise. As sometime Sunday evening before the lines are released, try to go through the next week's games, give it a lot of thought, try to take all things into consideration, try to take what the public probably is going to like in consideration. Remember, teams like Dallas, Pittsburgh, public loves betting on those teams, so the line is always tilted a point or two in games involving those teams. So take all things into consideration and try to come up with your own lines for these games. Try to guess what you think the lines will be. Then when the lines are released, compare your lines to the actual lines. It's a really good exercise. A lot of times, you don't necessarily just go with whatever lines, are there, if there's a 3-point difference between your line and the real line, you don't just automatically go with that game. Sometimes it'll make you stop and think, why? Why is my line so out of whack with the real line? Sometimes you will go with that game. You'll think, well, it's because I have a better handle on the situation than the odds makers or the betting public. Sometimes you'll think, oh yeah, maybe I wasn't giving this part of it enough consideration. So it's something I recommend you do or try anyway if you like betting on football. I do it every week. And when I looked at the Detroit Lions at Philadelphia Eagles game this week, I pegged Philadelphia as a 7 or 7.5 point favorite. I'm well aware of the fact that Philadelphia's 3 wins have been by a combined 4 points. 2 1-point victories and a 2-point victory. I'm well aware of the fact the Eagles have not been a great team to back this year. But Detroit's been awful. The Detroit Lions have been awful. They had a bye last week, 1-3 on the year now. A lot of us expected this Detroit team to be good coming into the year. I was one of those people. They won 10 games last year. They seem to have a good, young nucleus of players. And all year, Detroit struggled with a Week 1 win over St. Louis. I thought that was a little bit of an aberration. I was backing the Lions. I believe in their next game, they were 8-point underdogs on the road against San Francisco. Each week, we keep on waiting for the Lions to awaken, waiting for the Lions to become that team we thought they were going to be. But as the weeks pass, it's becoming more and more clear that maybe the Lions just aren't that team. Maybe last year was the aberration. Maybe this is the Detroit Lions team we're used to, the Detroit Lions team of 2010 and 2009 and 2008 and just about every other year for the past 30 years. So Detroit only a 5.5 point underdog on the road against Philadelphia. My early lean is towards the Philadelphia Eagles here. And it's not because I have any great faith in the Philadelphia Eagles. I recognize their offense has been sputtering this season. I believe they've scored less than 20 points in 4 out of their 5 games. Big turnover problems. Michael Vick, 2 more fumbles in their game against Steelers yesterday, or day before yesterday, that is now. So that is 11 turnovers now in 5 games just by Michael Vick himself. So the Eagles offense has problems, no question about it, but I think they might get healthy at home against the Detroit Lions. Detroit has not stopped anybody this year. And unless they work some things out in the bye week, which maybe they did. Detroit, obviously Jim Schwartz, their head coach, is a defensive guy. They've got some good players on the defensive side of the ball. They did have a bye week to work some things out. So I'll have to think about that, I guess, before I end up betting on the Eagles later in this week. But Eagles minus 5.5, something tells me that the fact the Eagles offense has been not very good, the fact that all of the Eagles' 3 wins have been really close, 2 2-point wins and a 1-point win, or 2 1-point wins and a 2-point win. I think those combinations, we're keeping the line at 5.5 here instead of 7 or 7.5 like I think it should be. So it could be a good time to get on Philadelphia this week. Again, we'll see as the week progresses. 2 surprise teams, 2 real surprise teams take the field in Miami. St. Louis Rams visiting the Miami Dolphins. Now, you might say yawn about this game coming into the year. And quite frankly, even now you might say yawn because we don't expect to see a whole lot of scoring in this game at all. Both of these offenses very limited in terms of what they have at the wide receiver position. Beyond the New York Jets, now that Santonio Holmes is out, I challenge you to find 2 teams that have less at the wide receiver position than the Miami Dolphins and the St. Louis Rams. But both these teams have been playing some good football. Jeff Fisher, what a job he has done at St. Louis. Can't say enough about the job this guy has done. A 2-14 team last year. They're 3-2 through 5 games. They already look like a Jeff Fisher team. Tough on defense, sort of conservative offensively. You can tell Fisher has changed the philosophy on offense to that power running game, that run-first offense. When Sam Bradford was drafted number 1 overall a few years ago by the Rams, What they started out trying to do for the first couple of years of Bradford's career, they were trying to be one of these pass-first offenses, the new NFL, the New Orleans Saints, the Green Bay Packers, the New England Patriots, those types of teams that pass to set up the run. Problem is the Rams did not have that personnel. Jeff Fisher recognized that, changed the philosophy on offense. It's instantly made the St. Louis Rams a competitive team. They're going on the road to play the Dolphins this week. The Dolphins, despite the fact they're only 2-3, coming off a nice road win last week in Cincinnati, the Dolphins have surprised everybody, including me. They've been very tough and competitive this year. Prior to last week's win over Cincinnati, they lost consecutive overtime games, one on the road to Arizona, one against the division rival New York Jets. I still don't know how the Dolphins are doing offensively. When you examine this team, they have a rookie quarterback who has played pretty well this year, but certainly not one of the better quarterbacks in the league by any means, Ryan Tannehill, in his rookie season. They have Reggie Bush, who once again has been better than he's been throughout most of his career, but still not an elite running back by any means. Believe he rushed for 49 or 50 yards in their last game, something like that. And then again, the wide receiver position, what do they have? Devon Best? I mean, this is a team that smoke and mirrors on the offensive side of the ball. One thing they do have on offense that is not talked about enough is a great offensive line. This Dolphins offensive line, one of the best groups in the league, and it's part of the reason the Dolphins offense has been able to, while they haven't been great, they've been able to be good enough, a functional unit, which functional is better than me and a lot of other people thought they were going to be heading into the year. Really, the Dolphins' defense is the unit that has carried this team. They've been very good. They were very good again last week, limiting a Cincinnati offense that has some explosive capabilities with wide receiver A.J. Green, one of the best young wide receivers in the league. Obviously, the quarterback, Andy Dalton. Dalton looked bad last week. He was outplayed by Ryan Tannehill. Give most of the credit to that Miami defense. I expect them to have similar success this week against a St. Louis Rams team that, just like Miami, very limited at the wide receiver position. Sam Bradford, I know he doesn't have a whole lot to work with, but did not look very good to me. I was happy to see the Rams win last week. I was backing them against the Seattle Seahawks. Still, Bradford did not look very good to me in that game, especially once Danny Amendola went out. Seemed as though Danny Amendola was the only receiver Bradford felt comfortable enough with to throw him the ball. And will they have any success on the road this week moving the ball against the Dolphins? I don't think so. I'd be surprised if the Rams were able to score any more than 10 to 14 points in this game. Rams have not been as good on the road this year as they have been at home. Dolphins a 3.5-point favorite in this game on BETDAQ. And again, early in the week, I do expect Miami to win this game. But boy, Miami, if you've seen the way they've played the last few weeks, just every game is overtime or coming right down to it, coming right down to the end of the game. Last week was no exception. It's tough to back Miami and lay more than a field goal, I mean, with the offense they have, with as close as these games have been, backing Miami plus 3.5, that's one thing, but laying 3.5 or 4, backing the Dolphins, that's a tough one. This team, aside from the Oakland Raider game, this team has not shown the ability to score enough points to be covering really any numbers. Still, though, that's a game we'll keep our eye on. Interested to see which one of these two teams continues their surprising season. And maybe both of them will. Because if Miami wins to go 3-3, that would drop the St. Louis Rams to 3-3. It's still a surprise for both teams. Obviously, both teams with a chance to still do some things. But I feel like this game is a little more critical for the Rams. Because the Rams, well, you know what? I shouldn't even say that. I'm selling the Dolphins short. I was going to say the Rams still, I think, have a realistic chance at a wild card spot, especially since some teams in the NFC that we thought were going to be better than they have been, teams like the Detroit Lions, these teams have not been as good as we expected. The Arizona Cardinals, who are a game ahead of the Rams in that division, Rams just beat them last week. I expect Arizona to fall back a little bit. You wouldn't expect the Rams to catch San Francisco. Still, could the Rams be in the mix for a wild card spot? The Dolphins, you'd still think that's a long shot, wouldn't it? You got teams like Denver and San Diego in the West. You got teams like Baltimore and Pittsburgh in the North. Obviously the Dolphins' own division, the AFC West, appears to be a little down this year. Still, so maybe I'm selling the Dolphins short. As that was coming out of my mouth, that it's a bigger game for the Dolphins than I am for the Rams than it is the Dolphins, I thought that's probably not the case. If the Dolphins win this game, they're right back in the thick of things, just like the Rams would be. I want to move on to another game, a game involving one of Miami's division opponents, the New England Patriots. New England going out west to play the Seattle Seahawks. New England only laying 3.5 points here. I mean, hey, I know Seattle's a really tough home team. I know Seattle's defense is really tough. Seattle beat the Carolina Panthers on the road last week, so maybe they're not just a tough home team. Maybe they're a tough team, period. still, I mean, the New England Patriots are the Patriots. And we've seen those of us who thought after the Cardinals game that maybe this was a different Patriots team, we've seen otherwise over the last couple of weeks. Did you see this offense last week in their win over the Denver Broncos? Did you see them the week before that, or against Buffalo, or the week before that in their close loss to Baltimore? This offense, business as usual for Tom Brady and this receiving core. I know Seattle's really good on defense, and this is one of those games feels like a suspicious line to me, a little bit of a weird line. Maybe Seattle's the right play at home. They're certainly better on defense in New England. They're certainly a more physical team than New England. And so maybe, those of us who say, oh, Brady and Belichick and that offense, maybe we're just being sort of brainwashed by that. Maybe the Seattle side's the right side here, but again, right now, early in the week, I can't see myself backing the Seattle Seahawks here. Only a 3.5-point underdog to the New England Patriots. New England looks like the same New England team that we've seen in years past. I mean, they look like one of the favorites in the AFC. So I was a little surprised to see that line again. In the lines that I made, I had New England -6 on the road in Seattle, 3.5 the actual line on BETDAQ. So we'll see if that line moves as the week goes along. People love betting on the Patriots. Maybe Seattle might be a sneaky home dog there. Maybe I'm not giving enough credit. We shall see. Another game taking place out west in San Francisco, a rematch of last year's NFC Championship game. This could be the best game of the week. New York Giants going out there to play the Niners. The San Francisco 49ers, what can you say about this team? Even though they're not undefeated, and teams like the Houston Texans and the Atlanta Falcons are, I think at this point you'd have to say the San Francisco 49ers look like the best team in the entire NFL. And the Giants, even though they won the Super Bowl last year, even though they've shown they still have explosiveness on offense, there's been some holes on that Giants team this year. Once again last week they fell behind to a bad team, falling behind to Cleveland early. And they could have lost that game to Cleveland. If not, there was a real turn of events towards the end of the first half in that game. Cleveland was going down to get a 2-score lead in that game, possibly. Brandon Weeden threw a bad interception that was returned 40 or 50 yards. A couple of plays later, the Giants scored. Cleveland fumbled the ensuing kickoff. The Giants scored again. So big turn in that game right before halftime that really pushed the momentum in the Giants' direction. Cleveland was never able to recover. So the Giants have looked like a flawed team so far this year. Not sure yet whether they'll be getting their best receiver, Hakeem Nicks, back this week. He did miss this last game with injury. They're going to need him against San Francisco 49ers defense that is absolutely nasty. The last 2 weeks, the Niners have allowed a combined 3 points. We do expect the Giants to score more than 3 points this week. Will they be able to score enough to beat San Francisco? A San Francisco team that will have to be motivated and irritated after losing that NFC Championship game last year. I'm sure that still burns those coaches and players. They were so close to winning that game. San Francisco, a 5-point favorite in this game. And when you're looking at two teams who are very evenly matched, two teams who, certainly the Giants have explosiveness on offense, two teams who are championship quality teams. You think maybe 5 might be a little too much here. Maybe giving the Giants more than a field goal, maybe that might be a little too much. I don't really think so. I think you're going to have a motivated San Francisco 49ers team going up against a Giants team that has not quite hit their stride yet. Remember last year the Giants were 7-7 through 14 games. It took them a while to really hit their stride, and I don't think they've hit their stride quite yet this season. San Francisco certainly playing great football. So my early lean is towards San Francisco -5 there against the New York Giants. Mentioned briefly earlier the Green Bay Packers going on the road to face the Houston Texans this weekend. That'll be an excellent game. Talk more about that as the week goes along. The line has not yet been released on BETDAQ. It's Houston -5 out in Vegas. The Monday night game, to me, will be a very interesting game. I do have a feeling I'll be having a play on this game because I have an early lean but a fairly strong lean in this game. The Denver Broncos, Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos going on the road to face the San Diego Chargers. San Diego a 1-point favorite in this game on BETDAQ right now. Watched that Denver game last week. It was my only win of Sunday. I won on the Rams on Thursday night, but my 3 Sunday games, my only win was New England -6.5. Lost my other 2 bets. When I saw Denver play, they are the exact team I thought they were. The exact team that I predicted they were going to be going into the game. And I'm not saying I'm have some sort of foresight. I just said I lost 2 out of my 3 bets on Sunday, so I'm wrong as much as I'm right. But I was right, I believe, on the Denver Broncos and what this team is this year. They're just not as good as everybody thought they were going to be. And that has nothing to do with Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning was excellent last Sunday. This guy's still one of the best quarterbacks in the league, even if he doesn't have all the arm strength he used to. It has more to do with the distorted perception of the Denver Broncos heading into the season. because they won their division last year, because they won a playoff game with the Pittsburgh Steelers, a lot of people looked at this team and said, oh, you have a division champion that Peyton Manning, a Hall of Fame quarterback, is taking over this team. Oh, the sky's the limit, Super Bowl contender. Well, the Denver Broncos were 1-4 last year when they made the change, put Tim Tebow in there as at quarterback, and changed their offensive philosophy. 1-4. If they had not made that change, if they had not put Tim Tebow in as quarterback, had kept on doing what they were doing with Kyle Orton or maybe Brady Quinn, they would have been a 4-12, 5-11 team. They were a bad team with a bad defense that was going nowhere. Remember, that Denver defense, going into the season, a lot of people said, oh, a young, good defense. That defense won them a lot of games last year. That's just not the case. Their defense was not in the top 20 of the league last year in any statistical category. They allowed more 40-point games than any defense in the league. True, the Denver games became a lot more low-scoring once Tebow became quarterback, once he started winning all those games. That has just as much to do with the change in offensive philosophy, the fact they started running the ball more, run. They led the league in rushing by a wide margin when Tebow was playing quarterback there, which shortened the games, let the defense more rested, have some more time on the sidelines. That was as big a reason as any for the good play of the Denver defense last year. Now, John Fox, an excellent defensive coach. Jack Del Rio, first-year defensive coordinator there. He's a good defensive coach. And the Broncos defense is better this year than they were last year. Still, the reality is Peyton Manning took over what was more like a 10-loss team. If they hadn't put Tim Tebow in there, if they hadn't changed their offensive philosophy, they would have been a 10 or 11-loss team. So what you have now with Denver, you have a 10-loss team that adds Peyton Manning at quarterback, and Manning has made this team better. Now, has he made them any better than an 8-8 or 9-7 type team? I don't think so. I don't think this Denver team's record is going to be much better, if any better, than last year. And, a lot of people would say, is Denver any better than they were last year? A lot of people will scoff at that and say, oh, they got Peyton Manning. And maybe they are better last year. Certainly their offense is better. But will their record be any better than their record was last year? You know what? I'm not sure it will. And Denver fans are still in denial about this. Manning himself is still in denial. I mean, they're 2-3 now on the year, but you heard Manning post-game after the game, pointed out that the three teams they lost to are all great teams: Houston, Atlanta, New England. Okay, even though New England has lost twice this year, I'll give you that. We'll say those three teams are great teams. What do you call San Diego? San Diego's a good team, 3-2 on the year. I don't think anybody is going to call the San Diego Chargers a great team. So, Denver, if they're the team everybody thought they were going to be, if they're the team that Peyton Manning is still sort of saying they are, sort of saying, yeah, our 3 losses, tough games against, 3 great teams, they should be able to beat a less than great team this week, right? The San Diego Chargers, a division rival, a team the Broncos were able to beat last year when Tim Tebow was the quarterback. So they were able to beat them on the road, just like they'll be on the road this Monday night. Will the Broncos beat the Chargers this Monday night? I have serious doubts about that. I think the San Diego Chargers might be a little better than Denver at this point. Now, Denver, for as good as Manning is, every good team they've played, and I'm leaving the Pittsburgh Steelers out right now because they're 2-2. We don't know about the Steelers yet. The Steelers might not be quite as good as we thought they were going to be. Every definite good team the Denver Broncos have played, they've been behind by 20 points or more at some point in those games. Good teams do not consistently fall behind by 20 points or more. Now, true, Manning, as great as he is, he's led them back in every one of those games, and they've come within shouting distance in the fourth quarter in every one of those games. But good teams do not fall 20 points behind consistently. Denver is just not a good team, and they're still a little overvalued. Right now, this line is close to pick. San Diego, a 1-point favorite. So I think now, when a lot of people still think Denver is going to be a really good team, it's a good time. Strike when the iron's hot. Buy low, sell high. Good opportunity to sell high with the Broncos. Even though you say a 2-3 team, how do you sell high? Public opinion of this team still a little higher, I think, than it should be. I do expect that to sort of get down to reality here over the next couple of weeks, but I think we have a very good opportunity this Monday night to back the San Diego Chargers at home, only giving 1 point to the Denver Broncos. Well, that's it. Those are a few of the games that caught my eye here early. Now, of course, we'll be previewing all of these games throughout the week here on BETDAQ NFL. If you haven't checked out the site, I encourage you to do it. We have everything here you want if you're an NFL fan, if you like betting on NFL football. If there's something you don't like about the site, or if you do like about the site and you want to let me know, John@BETDAQNFL.com is my email address, JOHN@BETDAQNFL.com. Get to me, and hey, as long as it's not obscene or profane, I'll get right back to you. We'll be seeing you throughout the week here in video form on BETDAQ NFL, live on Sunday. Remember, we do a live stream here from the BETDAQ NFL War Room every Sunday, 1 o'clock this time, 6 o'clock over there in England. Until then, for BETDAQ NFL, I'm John Arnette.